Beep, 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 beep. Hello all, got some important news here from the Gay Men's Network. As you know, run by some marvellous men, including Dennis Legal Kavanagh, whose, of course, podcast you can watch with Clive, the wonderful Clive. So, they've written a document to the United Nations independent expert on behalf of the Gay Men's Network. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Gay Men's Network is a grassroots UK-based organisation established to fight all forms of homophobia, including that displayed by the TQ plus nutters, right? Okay, so that's what we're after. But it's Gay Men's Network is specifically for gay men. Okay? This guy is visiting from the United Nations. He's the independent expert. I can't remember his name. They haven't put it in here, but he's not necessarily. I just think he's nuts. But the Gay Men's Network, not being me, instead of sending the man a ranty video, have written something worth understanding. So I think I'm going to take you through some of it, see what you think. I'll put the link in the doobras so you can have a look and see what Dennis's and the team's thinking over at the Gay Men's Network is, in that they produced this documentation, which I think will be something of great use if the IE, the independent expert, actually listens to it. Right, okay. In our submission, I'm not going to do the preamble, you can look at that yourself. In our submission, we identify 3 areas of deep concern for homosexual males which thus far appear to be absent from the consideration going forward. So what we're saying is there's a problem with what's going on, and it's in Europe as well. Right? First, we draw attention to the institutional homophobia, both driving and pervading gender medicine, which is disproportionately targeted at same-sex attracted youth. We know that gender medicine is transing the gay away. It's the new conversion therapy. Second, we draw attention to the fact that self-ID gender recognition legislation compromises same-sex spaces for homosexuals. Yep, you can't keep the LARPing women out. Get it? Okay, it's not hard, is it? Thirdly, we draw attention to the teaching of gender identity ideology in schools and demonstrate how this regressive ideology fuels homophobia and relies on homophobic tropes, which it certainly does. Gender is profoundly homophobic. Queer theory is profoundly homophobic. Now, all of this is very well referenced by the team over at Gay Men's Network. They begin, we note there is much to applaud in, and then they quote some documents, the work and statements of the IE in respect of critical topics, such as homophobic killings across the world. This is to be supported and commended. We regret that this good work is set within a context of what appears to be uncritical support for gender identity ideology and a call for policies based on this doctrine. We therefore ask the IE to carefully consider the plurality of positions in the UK regarding this ideology and the homophobic aspects of it we emphasise. What essentially is happening there is the stuff that's coming down from outside the UK is just gender-based nonsense, and it's got to be stopped, right? The sooner we cut ties with just about everybody else, the sooner we can put the world to rights. And that's what we're going to do. You know why? Because we're right. The UK currently, so the present position for gay men like myself and the others who wrote this, the UK is currently in the midst of an intense and serious debate regarding gender identity ideology and the practical effects of institutions and workplaces embracing this doctrine. We are gravely concerned that a well-known charity, Stonewall, has chosen to redefine homosexuality as same gender. To the gay men listening, do you understand what that means? It means you haven't found the right girl yet. Has chosen to redefine homosexuality as same-gender attraction, moving away from and in conflict with the Equality Act. Protected characteristics of same-sex attraction. We are further concerned that the CEO of that charity referred to lesbians unwilling to countenance sexual encounters with the opposite sex as sexual racists. That's essentially what they're saying about gay men now as well, because you haven't found the right girl yet. This is homophobia wrapped up in new clothes. I wish you lot would get it. Come on. We are further concerned that the CEO of that charity, it is now commonplace for homosexual men in online environments to be called genital fetishists, simply for saying they are same-sex attracted, and men who say this in online dating environments frequently lose accounts for transphobia. That's Grindr. You say that you only sleep with men and that you won't sleep with women on Grindr, and they'll kick you off. You've got to start getting this, because otherwise you just look weak. This is an existential attack on the concept of same-sex attraction and homosexuality driven by gender identity ideology. We are concerned that homosexuals who challenge the homophobia of gender identity are targeted for silencing, or their right to political assembly is challenged. In 2022, mermaids, currently subject to a safeguarding investigation, sought to strip charity status from a single UK charity for homosexuals and bisexuals, the LGB Alliance. That action alone speaks to a deep desire to curtail civil advocacy for the protection of homosexuals, and we are concerned that this tension appears not to be reflected in United Nations work on the subject. It's not reflected at all. There is a balance and a distinction to strike in our view. This is a very well written political document, that's what you've got to understand, and lawful document, with Dennis and the team over there using the language and the approach of law. Personally, I want to see the whole thing eradicated, and if that means cutting connections with the UN, let's do it. I don't care anymore. You're not going to bring in gender identity ideology, which means that you can, in Iran, tell gay men they should be women, and either sterilise them or throw them off a damn building. Anybody that supports gender identity ideology or queer theory, in my mind, is a rank homophobe. And that's even if you're my best mate. Question. Point 7. Homophobia in the provision of gender medicine. We have actively drawn attention to homophobia in the field of gender medicine in policy papers on conversion therapy and NHS England interim service specifications. In August 2022, the Gender Identity Development Service at the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust was ordered to close on the basis it was deemed not safe. Evidence of a homophobic medical scandal without parallel is now unfolding, and the field generally is now subject to an independent and forensic review by Dr. Hilary Cass. We're in the medical arena and the legal arena here, not the cultural one where I flit about talking nonsense, right? In a review of Hannah Barnes' book on the subject, Time to Think, published in the Times, journalist Hadley Freeman wrote, when Gids asked adolescents referred to the service in 2012 about their sexuality, more than 90% of females and 80% of males said they were same-sex attracted or bisexual. Wonder how many of the 10% left were lying. Bristow came to believe that Gids was performing conversion therapy for gay kids, and there was a bleak joke on the team that there would be no gay people left at the rate Gids was going. When gay clinicians such as Bristow voiced their concerns to those in charge, they say it was implied that they were not objective because they were gay and therefore too close to the work. Brackets, Gids does not accept this claim. The gravity of the vast overrepresentation of homosexuals and bisexuals is aggravated by the fact that all the available data suggests that gender incongruence is always most likely to be a passing and transient phase for a young person, with statistics showing 90% plus patients desist. It is gay. This is me again. It is gay conversion therapy. Back to Dennis and the team. Autism is a notable coincident factor, and the clinical patterns across the world suggest an explosion in patients and a skew towards the female sex. The figures for the UK indicate an increase of in excess of 5,000% for girls during the operational period of the Tavistock. They are converting homosexuals. And when you believe that men can be women, you're part of it. One more that's worth hearing. I'm not going to go through all of it because you can read it yourself. We express a further concern as regards to so-called conversion therapy bans. Don't support it. Do not support it. And encourage the visitor who's coming over to consider our policy response in this area. Badly draft bans, they've already done the policy response to that. Badly draft bans fuel the very problem they claim to solve. Asking there for consideration of the danger of the conversion therapy ban to gay people. It's just extraordinary. Let's go to the conclusion, because I will leave you to read the rest of it yourself. The IE's visit to the UK represents an opportunity to critically examine modern homophobia, particularly that emanating from the modern gender-based movement. We hope very much that the opportunity will be taken. Across the planet, more and more male homosexuals are making their voices heard on this issue and pointing out clear and obvious examples of homophobia, such as we have referred to in this response. It cannot be right that the voices of homosexuals such as ours are ignored or discriminated against because they raise serious critiques of gender identity ideology. It is our view that a homophobic medical scandal without equal is playing out across the globe, and that opposition to that has been silenced or ignored. The UN, and by extension the individual visiting, should address the reality of this enfolding debate and confront the clear homophobia of gender identity ideology. I'll tell you what, Dennis and the crew, and all you guys over at the Gay Men's Network, I'm going to call this the Gay Letter to Gay Men 2. Because that's what it actually is. It's a second letter to gay men that you've written this time rather than me. But it's a second letter to gay men. And I think if gay men can read this letter and understand that this is the level at which this is happening and still don't get involved, then they are reprehensible. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to send this to my friends and I'm going to say, can you please share this urgent video and this document on Facebook and Twitter, and let's see how many of them do it. Because my tolerance for inaction is now at absolute breaking point. Absolute breaking point. And I think it's necessary that we get them to get off the bench because they need to recognise the danger in their midst. Sterilising homosexuals, converting homosexuals, telling them they're in the wrong body. And it's coming from the United Nations. How far does it have to get before you realise we've got a problem? How far does it have to get before you go, hang on? So, get your heads out of the sand, gay guys. This literally is the letter to gay men too. Thank you to the Gay Men's Network.